Total War Saga Troy is already shaping up to be quite the controversial game for Creative Assembly. With one foot deep in mythological interpretation and the other in history, there is a hesitant expectation in its execution, from mild concern to outright distaste. I'll be addressing the idea of theme in another video, but that fantasy/history mix is still relevant for this video, as PC Gamer released an article last Wednesday with some more details into the art direction and mechanics of the upcoming Saga title. If you watched my initial Troy video, then some of those points will be brought up again, just with more information. If you haven't seen it, click on the button at the top right to gander a quick watch. Now without further ado, here are 7 new things we now know about Total War Saga Troy. One of the aspects of this Saga title that we've seen repeated over and over again is that even though we know how this story goes in the epic poem, that in no way means it'll go down as such in the game. The beginning will start the same way always. Helen floats away with Paris to Troy, but that's about it. You start small and build your way up from there. As a Greek faction, it'll be your ultimate goal to either build a confederation of other Greek factions through diplomacy, or conquer them through force and make them sail with you to Troy. As Hector, you'll try to simply become king of Troy, replacing your father. However, you could switch sides at any point. Greeks are not forced to only ally with Greeks. Troy is not limited in diplomacy to only non-Greek factions. Therefore, you could potentially see Hector allying with someone like Odysseus and disrupt the Greek war machine so it never leaves the shores of Greece. Anything seems to be on the table, and this aspect screams Three Kingdoms diplomacy through and through, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, although it is something that still needs worked on in Three Kingdoms, so hopefully it'll be hammered out on Troy's release. However you decide on your strategy as a Greek faction, you're going to need a lot of heroes, several allies, and quite the elite army to successfully push across the Aegean. According to lead game designer Todor Nikolov, the city of Troy itself is comparable to Kyoto in Shogun 2. It's basically a Total War boss battle. It's a faction of its own, massive city walls, fully garrisoned at all times, and able to withstand the longest of sieges, not unlike the epic itself. Oh, and one more thing. Its walls cannot be broken during a normal siege. Not something we'd really know how to do right now anyways, considering that we don't know what siege equipment will be used in the game. So how in the heck are you supposed to take the dang thing? The answer is frustrating but simple. Patience. There are events throughout the campaign that might lead to opportunities to push an attack. These events are one way the fantasy and historical meet, such as the Wrath of Poseidon in the form of an earthquake, to which some historians believe is the allegorical event of the Trojan horse. These earthquakes will be the only way the walls are broken and contain breaches. If you choose to attack the city during one of these events, you'll find a Troy that is in shambles, its garrison depleted, and plenty of avenues opened up from the walls. It still doesn't sound like much of a challenge, but with Nikolov's emphasis on having a lot of troops and heroes to siege Troy, it sounds like they'll still put up quite the fight. So the old adage of pick your battles wisely is something that should be considered with some seriousness should you want to take on the massive city that is Troy itself. We've already discussed the historical interpretation of mythological units in the last video, but we get another glimpse of a unit in this article. There are now centaurs as a confirmed new unit, quote unquote. These legendary units are actually just simple light cav. Yet in a time period where horses are used only to pull chariots or supply wagons, a rare group of men on top of horses used as a quick striking unit would no doubt be seen as a molding of the two, half horse, half man. Still not entirely sold on this aspect of historical interpretations. I fully understand the idea behind that decision, and I think it will make Troy unique among Total War games, but I do have my hesitations. It is very possible that as development continues, we get to see more units and other parts of this game within the context of historical interpretation. I'll warm up to it more. A historically accurate lack of cavalry isn't the only big change in battles for Troy. New battle terrain and the heavy focus on infantry abilities will be key to winning battles in this title, but in the PC Gamer article there's a new development. Units that are now able to switch weapon stances to counter certain situations. These aren't unit formations, mind you, nor are they units that can do more than one thing, such as an archer/spearman, but the ability to say, put your shield on your back, which gives you more spear damage, or be able to whip out that shield again to lose that spear damage but gain range bonus defense. This was the only other thing mentioned so far, but the ability for a unit to not just have multiple weapons like in Three Kingdoms as mentioned, or even Warhammer 2, but to actually switch weapon stances in the manner just mentioned to counter any situation sounds very enticing and gives you a customization potentially that we've only seen in a game like Total War Arena. Troy is already blurring the lines between Three Kingdoms and Warhammer, and heroes are only going to further increase that. The heroes in Troy are on Lu Bu's level according to the article, able to take on full units with ease, especially if they acquire their divine artifact. Getting this divine artifact requires something on par with Warhammer's quest battles, series of objectives that ends in a final epic battle of swords. Not only does this give your heroes something to do outside of just battles in this campaign, but also gives us a tie-in that's relevant to the epic, a homage to Homer, if you will. For instance, Odysseus' quest line involves him going off to fight in Troy, then coming all the way back home to fight off his wife's suitors, show off his archery skills, and reclaim his kingdom. His reward is a magical bow and his son is an accompanying hero. As Nikolov states, it is a great way to give Odysseus his own full story in the context of this game, and similar narratives will be written for the other heroes. It won't be as simple as completing these quests to keep your hero satisfied though. Heroes will have their own ranking system, and you'll need to juggle who ranks up when throughout your campaign. Achilles takes this system seriously, of course, and if there are heroes that have more fame than him, he'll start sulking, like a child, no doubt making him drastically less effective on the battlefield and on the campaign map. The fame game and quest battles don't really concern me, and honestly I think it's a very relevant way to add some depth and management to the era. What does concern me is their ability to take on armies like in Three Kingdoms. The idea of taking on full units as a solo hero does not sound so appealing in this Western epic, and is definitely more appealing and traditional of the Eastern Three Kingdoms storytelling. Coupled with the imbalances we've seen in some of these Three Kingdoms characters, I'm afraid we'll see the same thing in this title, and that is honestly a very big turnoff for me. The gods in Troy will be a driving force for your campaign strategy. No doubt we will see mechanics very similar to Warhammer and Warhammer 2 in terms of way to satisfy them, from sacrificing captured soldiers to dedicating temples and conquered regions. Finally, having some sort of dedicated mechanic to satisfy the gods in a quasi-historical game is something that I'm really looking forward to figuring out, but is not going to be quite as simple as it initially seems in Troy, and that is thanks to, in part, from the return of agents. Yes, agents are making a return to Total War, and they do seem to be the now old school agents of past Total War games, with both its good and bad qualities. There will be 3 agents, priests, envoys, and spies, and it is those priests that can hold sway of a god's opinion towards other factions. There is no concrete purpose yet for the other envoys and spies, but we do also have the confirmation of a new type of agent, aside from these 3 standard conventional ones. These are one-shot, one-action agents. They serve a very specific purpose, and their one action cannot fail. These agents seem to be game changers, and though they'll cost significantly more resources, I can see how they'd be very useful in opening up opportunities for your campaign, from guaranteeing an assassination from a high-ranking enemy general, or maybe potentially opening up gates to Troy to lead to a battle. I am both intrigued and very concerned about the return of agents. I miss their usefulness in games like Rome 2 and Attila, but I sure as heck do not miss that massive enemy agent spam. So Creative Assembly better have a dang good way to either limit agents or do something to eliminate the army of agents in the late game, which slows down turn times to a crawl. Troy's economical management is a bit more complex than I was first led to believe. In the article, there is the rehashing of different resources that will be required in order to function. Food for troops, bronze for elite troops, wood and stone for buildings, and gold for trade, but it goes deeper. In some regions, these resources have a finite amount. Once they're depleted, they're literally gone for the rest of the campaign. This drastically shapes your early expansion plans to potentially grab those specific resources quick, and it's this aspect of Total War that we have yet to see. I'm very excited to see how this works, as it means that storing up certain resources even in the early game will be a crucial, forward-planning idea to be able to run your war machine in the late game. It also means that there is more than one way to go broke, essentially, and more than one way to make some nice profit. In Three Kingdoms, food was really the only physical resource to trade aside from those character items, but we could be looking at now over half a dozen with Troy, making it a much more in-depth economic system where an excess of any resource could grant some serious advantages for your campaign. Sure, it also does mean some more micromanagement in this area, but this is also an area that has been lacking in Total War games in my opinion, and I'm more than happy to finally see some attention being drawn to it. This last point is more of a mentionable and doesn't really have a lot to it. Troy's map is around the same size of Rome 2, albeit on a much more micro scale. The Aegean Sea dominates its center, and my only concern is how vulnerable armies will be making what will probably be a 5 to 10 turn trek to get from Greece to Troy across the sea. The massive size of Britannia and Thrones was one of its best appeals, so to have this small region of the Mediterranean scaled to the size of a full release map, it leaves a lot of room for maneuvering and a lot of conquering. I honestly can't wait to see what the map looks like, and hopefully we'll get to see that soon. In all honesty, I'm still hesitant about this title. I'm not sold on these uber powerful heroes. Agents are welcome as long as that spam has been hammered out. Battles are going to look vastly different than any Total War game, and at this point I don't really know if that's a good thing. There are, however, plenty of positives to look forward to already. The much more in-depth economic system has me honestly really excited. Quest battles is something that I think will work great, and an open diplomacy are all things I'm glad to see make its way into this hybrid of a saga title. I'm not jumping to either side of the yes or no fence with this one just yet, so hopefully Creative Assembly will give us more about this game so we can all see if it's going to be a great one or not. I'll still keep my eyes and mind open to keep you informed on the latest content surrounding this game, don't you worry about it. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you're always up to date with all things strategy and Total War. This is Havoc, and I'll see you in the next one.